but we're making some fairly big decisions about where we're spending, probably 10 to 25% of your payroll costs.
Everybody is being like, oh yeah, I was going to do this.
How many employees have we got who have enrolled in our scheme?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, we got 6%. Great. Happy. Job done.
There's
no data to prove it.
It's a good story.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, the essential podcast for reward and benefits leaders. You're here with David and I again.
Yeah, nice to see everybody.
And we're delighted today to actually have someone with us, unlike last time. That person is John. So John is. Do you want to introduce John, David?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. So we're really excited to have a conversation with John today. John is Senior Director of International Benefits and Operations at Workday. And we're excited to talk to John for a number of different reasons. One is he's just really, really experienced. He's seen a lot, right, in his career, whether it was previously at Sky or Amazon or at Workday now. And he is very much a fountain of knowledge when it comes to designing global benefits programs. Has seen a lot, so we're really excited to get his perspective on a lot of these things. And I guess the other reason why we're excited to talk to him is obviously Workday is a big player in the ecosystem, right? A big partner of ours. We do a lot of things with Workday. So I'm sure he's going to have a good perspective from that point of view as well. So yeah, really excited to be talking to John.
Yeah, and lots of interesting things to talk about, data, obviously all the things we sort of teased last time around as well. So I'm sure he'll have some really interesting insights in those areas. So I guess without further ado, should we dive in?
Let's do it.
Hey everyone, I'm John Whitaker. I'm the Senior Director of International Benefits at Workday. So responsible for benefit programs in 32 countries. Been at Workday 5 years. Very much been on an automation, digitization journey with our employee benefits and trying to put in place kind of first-class benefits for all of our employees. Prior to that, I spent 4 years at Amazon, kind of responsible for new market entry and M&A. And, over that 4-year period, we launched Amazon into 50 new countries and we brought on about just over 500,000 employees via acquisition. So, really busy period of time and
I'm sure, yeah.
kind of very much learning as we were doing. And then prior to that, spent kind of best part of about 10 years in employee benefits. So always been in-house, always worked with vendors and suppliers with a lot of cynicism and, kind of really kind of keen to see how we drive the benefits industry forward.
Amazing. Yeah, obviously you've seen a thing or two. I guess any interesting challenges or things going on at the moment that you think are particularly interesting at Workday?
Yeah, I think the world has very much changed, and especially within the kind of software as a service industry. You go back kind of 6 months, it was very much about revenue growth, revenue at all costs. And there's been a real kind of change in that mindset where we're now very much looking at kind of profitability. Yeah. So, within a benefits space, when you're driving and adding new benefits and almost money's no object, very, very centered on how do we just add as many programs as we can to kind of solve the needs of our employees, to now being a lot more intentional about where we're spending money, why we're spending money, and what the outcomes of that incremental spend is. So, yeah, within the space of 6 months, the world has kind of fundamentally changed quite a lot.
Yeah, so when you talk about outcomes, John, is there more of an interest from businesses like yourselves and leadership teams around the sort of the storytelling piece around benefits and how they impact people's lives?
Yeah, very much so. And kind of if you're looking at a benefit or changing a benefit, why are you doing it and what are you going to get? So, when we look at our medical programs, what's the health outcome going to be for our employees and their families? What's the rationale and what's the reason for adding a financial education benefit or a kind of a caregiving benefit? As we kind of went through a really fast growth phase over the last 5 years, the opposite was kind of true. It's just let's keep adding benefits, and we now get to a point where we've got a lot of duplication. It's very difficult for employees to kind of understand what the pathway is for any benefit. And when you think about stuff like counselling, which kind of post-pandemic was really important, we probably have 5 or 6 different opportunities to use a counsellor in any country. So, that might be kind of behavioural health, it might be kind of an EAP, it may be embedded within our medical insurance, it may be kind of very kind of niche, such as kind of counselling around breastfeeding as part of a parental benefit. And as the employee, you kind of get that analysis paralysis. And so, can we just streamline that? Can we make it a lot easier for people to know, where do I go to? Who do I call? I've got a problem and I need someone to solve it. But really, like how? And you can easily end up in the wrong place, or you just get pissed off and you go, well, I can't be bothered because no one's helping me.
So hard to access.
Yeah, but at the same time, we're spending a ton of money on all this stuff that kind of is just really confusing. So, for me now, it's how do we be intentional about what we provide, and how do we kind of pare it back so it's easy for the employee. I call 111 and I'm going to get the service, or someone's going to help triage me to where I need to get to. And I think a lot of the new services that we saw over the last kind of 4 or 5 years, there's no kind of clear, unique selling point or unique point of why you're using it.
Sure.
It's just another thing that's on the shelf, gathering dust, and employees don't use it. And if they do need to use it, they just get very confused about what they're going to get and how they're going to be able to kind of resolve their problems. So now it's how do we kind of just declutter a lot of the benefits that we have? How do we make it make sense? What are the areas that we want to be kind of strong in and be viewed as being strong in? And what are the other areas where actually maybe the investment isn't worth it? The juice isn't worth the squeeze, and, employees aren't using it. So why do we kind of continue maintaining it when actually that money could be better spent something else or enriching in another area?
Yeah. I mean that's a challenge that I think a lot of folks are facing right now, and already getting into the meat and potatoes, right? Which will sort of deep dive into that topic around ROI and engagement and like data as well. I think is something that we want to talk about. Maybe before we get into that, like we also wanted to do a bit of a section on just like things that are going on in the news, right? So just kind of picking a couple of articles that we think were interesting, recently highlighted, just reading a couple of excerpts here, and we can just discuss them for a second. So one, a global engagement survey from Gallup that was recently released, talking about employee engagement and well-being. So just reading it a little bit more about it for the folks who can't see it on the screen maybe. One would be global employee engagement falling by 2 percentage points in 2024, costing the world economy $400 billion. I wonder how they get to that number, but maybe that's another thing. And sort of separately to that, like in the survey, they found that employee well-being fell for a second consecutive year following several years of steady gains, right, in terms of like this well-being trend. Yeah. So Carl, like John, any thoughts?
I mean, I'm not surprised employee engagement is kind of struggling at this moment in time. I think the economy has changed. There's talk of a recession. There's a lot of stuff kind of going on with tariffs and interest rates, and that people can't just park that at the door, so that they're bringing that stuff to work. Also a big debate around return to office. I think people got very used to having a lot of flexibility, and many organizations are now kind of moving away from that flexibility that people were able to enjoy. I think when you kind of start bringing all of that together, kind of multi-generational kind of workforce now as well, with very kind of polarizing needs and wants, I think it becomes incredibly difficult as an employer to kind of meet or continue to increase employee engagement. Pay rises are below inflation, so I think there's a lot of reasons why employees will be kind of disengaged with their employer, and now they're probably facing a reality of I'm not happy where I am, or maybe I do need a change, but the opportunities to get that change are not there. So it's very much an employer's kind of market at the moment. So you're kind of stuck with the hand that you're dealt. Pay rise is not great. Kind of lots of challenges, both in work, at work, as a parent, as a caregiver, the sandwich generation. So I think, it's probably not the rosiest picture that we kind of see at this moment in time.
Carl, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It doesn't surprise me. What does surprise me is the well-being stat, though, right? Because mortality and morbidity rates are improving around the world, right? Almost everywhere, mortality and morbidity is improving, yet employee well-being is falling, right? And it's just, I think like it comes back to this whole piece around companies spend so much money on intervention and hardly any money on prevention. So I think like naturally, if you're funding the safety net, you're not really having that moving that dial in terms of the broader well-being piece. I don't think so. But it still baffles me, because ultimately, if societal health is improving, why is workplace well-being not improving? And I know health and well-being, there are different things that you would put in those boxes that perhaps would influence those figures separately, but it always surprises me when stuff like that comes up.
I mean, I think we talked a little bit about it in our state of benefits reports, right?
Yeah.
Just like I think companies getting squeezed in terms of budgets, right? So it just means that they can't spend on a lot of this preventative stuff, even though that might be the best longer term play, right? So it's really interesting. I mean, to me, the thing that stands out is like, big number. I wonder how they get to it ultimately with these things, and what's the impact that it's actually causing.
I think what you also see is that kind of reduction in well-being is probably inversely proportional to the amount that companies are spending. Like over the last 5 years, we spent more on well-being.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yet the kind of return on that benefit would seemingly be kind of decreasing, and also inversely proportional to the number of solutions that are out there. And I think that kind of, there may be a kind of a well-being fatigue where we've all had well-being kind of pushed at us over the last 5 years.
There's huge marketing messaging around well-being. But,
and I remember during the kind of pandemic, every solution seemed to be a well-being solution. You're getting hit with a new one every kind of week. And I just don't think the data that many companies are saying, or the investment or the value, it just doesn't exist. You know, implement this solution and your attrition will go down 10%.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be honest, that's complete BS, right? Because if that was the magic pill, every single company would be working with that organization.
Yeah.
It's going to reduce your absenteeism by, 5%. So it's going to save you as a company, £100 million a year because your employees are more productive. Well, I mean, I just don't think you can A, measure that, or B, see it. So again, it's just kind of a snake oil, to be honest. And I think buyers have probably got a bit more clever around this as well, of you can't just spout numbers or have a Harvard research paper that says how great your solution is. They actually want to see the tangible outcome and the story of that. Are we making people feel better, but also does that have a positive impact on our business that we can actually measure, and not just be kind of numbers that you're talking about of, 3 people didn't go out on sick leave, so that saved us £180,000 because we don't lose their salary. I mean, these numbers are all just kind of seemingly made up.
I totally agree. I mean, and put a pin on it because I want to talk about this as in part of the data conversation. But it is really hard, right, to prove this causation correlation thing, and how do you get to actual impact? And it's really, really difficult to measure.
Because I mean, if you go through a recession, people worry about their jobs, and so your presenteeism is going to go up, or your absenteeism is going to go down.
Yeah.
Now, that's the outcome that you're probably looking for, but
is that because you implemented a well-being solution, right? I'm not sure.
Exactly.
Cool. I mean, the second article, the thing that we want to talk about is around NI increases. Obviously, very UK specific topic, but it's been in the news quite recently, and kind of an article here from the HR Grapevine talking about employers, the rise of NI contributions leading to potentially big extra costs for businesses that might result benefits budgets being further squeezed, right? Like an article seeing here about, for example, Tesco is having to pay an extra £250 million a year on that NI increase. So obviously budgets are getting squeezed.
A lot of fruit and veg.
What do we think? What are companies going to stop investing into benefits because of this?
No, I mean, they're not going to stop, are they? I think it's inevitable. There's going to be some cost pressures there. I think if your people costs rise, the first place you look to reduce spend is in your people cost. You try and look for cost savings in the same areas where the cost increase is happening. I think that's your first. But to me, that would be my first port of call. So I think there's going to be some pressures on businesses to cut costs. But I do, we talk about this a lot, David and John. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but I think a lot of companies probably should be taking the opportunity now to look at where they're investing their money and whether it's actually on areas of impact to their business and their employees. I actually think companies can save a lot of money in benefits. I think if they just took the time to do that analysis around impact and ROI, I think they'd probably find that they're spending a lot of money in areas of low impact and low appreciation.
Yeah, I think that's right. I appreciate the kind of national insurance, social security cost increases, kind of UK specific.
Yeah.
But if you look around the world, many
happening,
governments are introducing kind of taxation or other schemes that are going to drive up costs. So Ireland's got pension auto enrolment coming at some point this year, maybe. Australia is increasing their superannuation contribution limits. Other countries like Poland and Turkey have some form of auto enrollment into a pension plan, and the Netherlands is going through quite a big change as well.
Especially so retirement and health, which are the two big cost buckets within benefits, are going to only go up, right? Like this trend isn't reversing anytime soon.
Very much so, and kind of, I guess you got that whole kind of with Easter just kind of past. You think of shrinkflation always in the press, right? The Easter eggs get smaller, but the price stays the same. And you kind of see the same impact on medical insurance, right? The cost keeps going up, but the benefits available within it keep going down. And so I'm not sure you'll necessarily see people kind of pulling back on benefits. I think there is a bigger piece around talent. Can we continue to hire at the level we are hiring? How do we differentiate for our high-performing talent? So how do we invest in them? Bonuses or commissions or other incentive plans. You probably want to lean more into your high performers. So I think there will be some level of structural change as companies look at who they're hiring, where they're hiring. Are there other opportunities for some level of cost arbitrage, offshoring, outsourcing? But I think when you look at your people costs, then they are going to come under a lot of pressure, and it may just stop investment in the UK compared to other countries, or may also mean that people kind of pull back on roles and people that they're going to hire, as well as how do we invest in high performing employees and differentiate them from lower performing employees. So you might see performance improvement cases kind of increasing, which creates more stress for employees, which ironically, if you're pulling back on wellbeing solutions, you then don't have the tools to maybe help support your employees kind of through that. I'm sure people will hit pause. Now that Ireland has introduced a acceptable legal minimum pension contributions, do you have to go above and beyond that, or do you just sit at the minimum? The UK
sometimes it's counterintuitive, right? Like it ends up having the opposite effect. But,
very much so. Like, there then becomes no differentiation as an employer of, we offer really high pension contributions, but now everyone does it at this level. So, can we continue to differentiate? Can we continue to afford to differentiate on pensions? Yeah. So I think you end up with a lot of unintended consequences, which may end up kind of increasing the level of stress, reducing the level of engagement, potentially making the next kind of 18 months quite stressful, and kind of causing people's anxiety to kind of rise as they are concerned about their job and how they're showing up at work.
I think, the impact of tax saving consequences and stuff will definitely, reverberate, I think, for a lot of years to come. And obviously have influence on benefits and rewards, but it's much broader than that. So important topic. Maybe we move forward to we had kind of the conversation earlier, right, around some of the things that we want to talk about. We touched on a few of them before, one around data. Yeah, maybe you want to.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we need a jingle for the news section next time, though. I need to, starting to introduce it. So the first thing we wanted to chat about was data, right? And I think we've touched on it a little bit, but obviously reward leaders, companies have access to more data than ever before, right? So engagement metrics, demographic data, benchmarking data. I mean, consultants are trying to sell data to their clients left, right, and centre. I guess the first thing that sort of springs to my mind is, what do you think is the wrong way that companies are using data? Let me try and rephrase that question in a way that actually makes sense. So what are the mistakes companies are making when it comes to data, John? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think as an employer, people can be kind of fairly superficial around the data that they lose. So how many employees have we got who have enrolled in our scheme?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, we got 6%. Great. Happy. Job done.
What does that tell you? Right?
What does that tell you? And I think, we need to kind of dive into that kind of a little bit deeper. Like, are we driving outcomes, right? So we talked about outcomes earlier. And I think you've got to think, why are we doing this, and what do we hope to achieve for our employees or their families by offering these programs? And actually, does this program kind of meet that need? Or does that need continue to be kind of unaddressed? So, but it's even hard enough just to understand how many people have enrolled in a plan. Yeah. So I'm not even sure we've got entry-level data to be able to do the job. but we're making some fairly big decisions about where we're spending. And if you think about benefit spenders, depending on the country, it's probably 10 to 25% of your payroll costs. Massive spend, but minimal data, ROI, kind of value, engagement, anything around that. So
why is that, right? Like, it's something that still baffles me as like somebody who's been
too.
in benefits for only 5 years. Like, why is that the case, right? Like,
I mean, I think people have been talking about this as the magic pill for the last kind of 20 years that I can think of in employee benefits. Don't think the investment has kind of been there in platforms to kind of just serve that data up. And even if you can get that data, point in time data, maybe it's a month out of date. Modern world, that's fairly poor, but if that's the best you can get, great. Do we have the skills to interpret it? And so what? Like, I get data. I know that 10% of people have enrolled in a program, or I know that, my loss ratio is 85%.
Not what? Yeah.
What do I do with that? Like, it's the kind of whole so what? Is that good? Is it bad? Are the right things happening? And I think once you start kind of getting into that, it's a bit like, Alice through the looking glass. It's just really complex space. And I think a lot of that stuff is really hard to prove or kind of even really hard to control. But then we are being asked by CFOs to make decisions on, do we keep a benefit? Do we change a benefit? And most of the times it's through a cost-saving lens. So you take away the thing that's actually important to people, or you put in more friction. So you add in a deductible, or you change the network that's available because it's going to save you money. But actually,
that's the thing that people are using, right?
Yeah, and a very blunt tool. But the health outcomes for your employees may not be getting better. And it's kind of similar to when you outsource work to a lower cost location. Yeah, you immediately save on employment costs, but does that have a knock-on effect or an unintended consequence that your resources that are left behind are having to do more to kind of manage, that kind of transition of work to offshore? So I think you end up very much with a lot of unintended consequences. You've got rear view mirror. Well, I did this and this happened, but it takes you 2 years to actually work that out or kind of see that kind of coming through. So
earlier on, John, before we started recording, we were talking about AI, right? And how like everybody is being like, oh yeah, it's going to do this, that, and the other. Feels like the data conversation 10 years ago or so. Yeah. Like, what do you think, right? Is it actually going to have an impact? Are you seeing it? Workday is obviously an AI company now, like everybody else. So like, is that going to have an impact actually? Or is that the thing that's actually going to move it forward? Because theoretically, it should be really powerful to be able to do those kinds of things you're talking about, right? But
it should be. I mean, again, I think our need is kind of somewhat more kind of fundamental. I just need to get people enrolled into plans, and I need to get that reported to. Which again is amazing
that that's still not digitized, right?
Exactly, but, and that becomes a very difficult process, and it often goes wrong, and the employee experience kind of suffers as a result. So, like, I know there's a ton of investment now going towards AI, but I still think the kind of fundamentals of, can we enroll someone into a plan? Can we share that information with payroll and share it with a third-party insurance company or benefit vendor? Can we just do that successfully?
How broken that is.
12 times a year. So AI, great, and I'm sure it can give insights and other stuff like that. But still, we're not doing the fundamentals and the basics right. And we talk about employee experience and stuff like that. I think the best thing for employee experience is just do it right. Like, if you can't enroll your employees into medical insurance or the pension plan, especially when they're brand new, their view on you is going to go downhill very quickly. So you could have all AI doing stuff, but at the moment, I'm not seeing the kind of use cases within benefits that are going to add significant value or take kind of work away kind of from me. What I have seen is, if you have to write a policy, something like ChatGPT
generate it for you.
You can write a policy for me, which is great.
Communications, maybe.
Communications, we use. We've been using AI on our benefits website so that it kind of can be translated in real time into other languages. Your English-speaking company, most of our benefit materials are in English, but that doesn't help someone in Germany when you're talking about complex tax, retirement benefits, and they have to read it in a second or third language. So, using we use DeepL to translate our benefit pages, and we see some really good engagement with people in local language, not in the English language. So, that's areas where it can be quite cool. Could I live without that? Probably. Would anything change? Probably not. But it's helping make the lives easier. I think as you go forward and you get your benefit policy document and it's 50 pages long, something like ChatGPT could probably summarize it for you. So there are ways that it helps, but does it help me make better decisions around benefits? Does it help employees understand which programs they should be enrolling in? I'm not sure we're kind of there yet. I'm going to have to probably see that come through.
Do you think the AI can... The AI, like it's one single
Skynet.
entity, yeah.
Skynet, yeah.
Do you think AI can help with the data piece though, like interrogating data, or is it still a case of it's interrogating stuff I don't need to know about? It's the so what piece you talked about earlier.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's intelligent enough to kind of tell us what I should be doing as a benefits manager, or can it kind of project forward what's going to happen in 18 months' time if I was to do something? So,
Do you think it's going to happen?
Not in the short term. I think we're all kind of waiting with bated breath to kind of see what does AI do. And I think it can definitely automate. It can help digitize. Maybe it kind of replaces some of the frontline kind of chat that you might have with a vendor. Maybe it helps from a HR operations perspective that I no longer have to raise a case to ask how many days PTO. It will tell me, or are there kind of decision-making tools that I can have within benefits then, or around healthcare? I'm not sure. I just think there's going to be a few things that need to happen.
Yeah.
And the fact that we haven't invested in pure administration technology over the last 20 years, like, are we really going to be investing in
ready
AI?
to do the AI stuff? If you
And again, I think there are kind of levels of priority that need to kind of take place. And I think, meeting compliance needs and requirements, having people enroll, having people kind of get their medical cards or whatever it is within a timely manner.
It feels so basic, right? It's amazing that companies are not there yet, and we're not talking about small fry, but every large enterprise has the same problem, right? Which is amazing.
And I'm constantly amazed. You get meal vouchers and they're paper. They get delivered to the office, and someone has to hand them out. So like I think we've seen some strides forward with e-wallets and totally. Stuff like that. So that's great progress, but by no means is that kind of to the degree that AI is meant to kind of be able to revolutionize the world of work. So I'm not going to hold my breath. I do hope that we can kind of continue to get better with the administration, with the enrollment, ensuring compliance, delivering a great employee experience when they do come to enroll with or engage in their benefits. You go back 5 years, people were talking about the shopping experience, making it like Amazon. Well, I ordered something on Amazon last night. It's already at home. I enroll in a benefit. In about 8 weeks' time, I might get a pension booklet telling me that I've enrolled in a pension.
It's crazy.
And my payroll deductions might start in kind of 6 weeks' time.
And it's probably wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm no more informed about it than
they're using bets,
anything else. Exactly. There's one or two vendors out there who might get it right. But, it kind of goes wrong more times. And so as HR, we want to be strategic, but ultimately we end up being pulled back into the admin because that's the thing that goes wrong every single time. Yeah. It's very emotive for employees.
I mean, it's a thing that's urgent, not necessarily the most important. Right? It's just like the thing that will dominate the conversation. So,
and while I'd love to be thinking about how do we introduce a medical or health program that's going to help support our employees better, challenges are more along how do I enroll someone in the medical insurance and not have to constantly negotiate with vendors because we enrolled them late and we need to backdate something. So, I think a lot of the conversations that we have are always in the wrong direction, that we're always fixing something that's gone wrong. We're not proactive, just in the administration space, not alone getting into the health and wellbeing space. So, my job shouldn't be admin, but I think a lot of it does come back to admin, unfortunately.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to touch on before we kind of move to the next topics is around this the idea about impact, right? And how do you measure and how do we prove that kind of we're doing the right things? Because it's a conversation we have a lot. It's a conversation we have a lot internally with clients. This causation correlation thing, right? Like, does having a better medical plan lead to better rates of absenteeism and things like that? How do you think about it? How do you make the case internally? Like, what's the ROI on the benefit spend? How do you measure it? Like, how do you think about it?
I think it's impossible. Yeah. I mean, I think you're still dealing with quite a few different systems. It's very difficult to know have we actually made a difference or have we returned someone back to work healthy, ready, and in a quicker time. So I think if you're looking for a return on investment, you're going to struggle to kind of be able to measure that. There's the value of your investment. When you provide benefits, I think you're talking about peace of mind. You're thinking about the support that we're providing people. Stuff that they probably don't value today, such as income protection or life insurance.
But when they need it,
it's the most important thing in the world. The way I think about benefits is how can we take friction out of the equation, because there is a huge amount of friction. And if I think back kind of 6-7 years ago, case in Poland, an employee passed away. The family have come for the life insurance benefit, as you'd kind of expect. We had to break the news to the spouse that their partner had opted out of the life insurance because there was a benefit in kind, and they'd rather save, kind of 300 zloty a month than be enrolled in the life insurance. And so we have employees making really tough decisions that impact them and their family. And I'm sure that's a very stressful decision that you have to make of, do I take life insurance, or am I better off with the money in my pocket because I can spend it on something? And it's only kind of when you take that step back and realize that employee was probably under a lot of stress, their family could have really done with the support, and actually that support isn't available to them. So, when I think about these things at Workday, can we alleviate some of that stress? Yeah. So can we pay the benefit in kind for the employee so they don't have to make that decision of, do I get coverage, or are my family going to be left without a really important benefit? Do I have to, around sick pay? Why shouldn't people have sick pay from the first day of absence? Because they're making a decision of, do I get paid today, or do I go in and I'm sick and I'm going to have to be present even though I can't do my job? So can we de-stress things for employees, make it easy for them to engage with some of the programs and know what they have, and not make them have to make some really difficult decisions of, do I work and get paid today, or do I kind of stay home and not get paid? When we talk about, financial crises and affordability and recessions, I'm sure there'll be people having to make those decisions every single day, and they're not focusing on work. They're not focusing on their own health and well-being and their productivity. They're showing up because they have to, but because they can't afford to not work, but I'm not sure you're getting anything great from them. So for me, it's how do we just remove some of that friction? How do we make some of the decision making easy so that people don't have to spend some of their intellectual capital worrying about, do I come out of the life insurance because I don't want to pay the benefit in kind, as an example.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that is really the key, or something we think about a lot, is like, you want people to be focused on doing the best work of their career and not necessarily like taking care of the different things that are preventing them from doing that, right?
Correct.
So like, we think benefits has a huge role to play in that. And yes, it's hard to measure. Yes, it's hard to kind of indicate direct correlate or causation between having this benefit and making sure that people are more productive. But right? Because we've had their own experiences. You see all the stories of people who, at that point in time, it is the most important thing. Yeah,
correct. And that's stuff that you just can't predict, right? Yeah. You don't know if someone's going to need, to take some sick leave. You hope they don't. Yep. But unfortunately, that becomes the case. Yeah. You don't know if they're going to need to have an emergency doctor's appointment or a medical appointment. Again, you hope for the best, but I think as an employer, we can do a lot to kind of make sure that we've kind of got their back when they need us to have their back. Yep. And I think, that makes the world of work a lot better for people, because you're not having to worry about kind of 20 things. You maybe have 10 things that you have to worry about, right? Yeah. Deadlines and, performance and stuff. So, I very much think, how can we make sure our employees are focused on the things that matter? And, I've got their back. We're taking care of the other stuff so they don't have to worry about it. But, can I put a number on it? Can I put a return on investment? Can I, say how great I am? No. But we do measure it via employee engagement surveys, and we can kind of see where the sentiment is, any kind of concerns that are coming up. But a lot of this is just reactive to kind of what's going on.
It is difficult though, isn't it? Because I think you see, you do something, you implement something, a benefit strategy or a new benefit or whatever it may be. you track that through attrition and absence rates and productivity rates. I don't think benefit leaders are very good necessarily sometimes in just, even though you can't directly correlate the two, just stick a flag in it and say, this is because of it. And I think maybe I don't know what it is, but I think there clearly is a correlation between these things. It's just very hard to quantify it. But I think maybe if we did try and quantify it more, then the investment in some of these things will be more sort of
I mean, a lot of times it just goes back to the data points, right? Of like not having the data behind the scenes to be able to tell these stories.
I also think, and this might be kind of controversial, I might be talking myself out of a job. Like, does it even matter? Like, if we're not providing meal vouchers, but the company down the road is, like, are people not going to come work for us because we're not providing lunch vouchers? Like, it's a hygiene factor. Totally. And it may talk about who you are as an employer. Are you living your values, or are you showing the world that we really don't care about the small things that people will value highly? So, like, people work for companies that don't have great benefits. So if I increase our life insurance multiple from 3 to 4, are we going to see more people come work for Workday? Are we going to see people perform better at work? Are we going to see people leave? Like, no. So I don't think we really have that much kind of impact on kind of hiring or attrition, retention. But I think it really adds to that, the hygiene factor, the paper cut. So, if you don't have this thing, it starts to become a problem. If you say, "Oh, we love our employees," but you don't provide paid sick leave from day one, well,
doesn't sound like you do it.
So, you can very quickly kind of undermine your employee value proposition. And I hope, we put our benefits in the shop window. We've got a benefits website that's available to everyone. And I want people to kind of see that, we talk about our employee values, but actually our benefits really bring our employee values to life. So when we say we are an employee-centric organization, the way that we have our policies, hopefully that comes through. We pay the benefit in kind where there's a tax on your life insurance. We provide sick pay from day one. We provide paid parental leave from the first day of work, which there's so many companies that just don't back up their employee value proposition by saying, you come join Workday, if you give birth on day 2, you're going to get paid parental leave. Most countries have a year that you have to wait, or it might just be statutory. And that's not a great feeling. And you're missing out on great talent, because if I'm pregnant, or I think I'm going to be pregnant in the next 9 months, am I going to take the risk of leaving my employer to go work for someone else who may not pay me when I'm taking that time off to care for my family? I do see we can be a competitive advantage to help bring people to Workday and really start to bring our employee value proposition and what we're about as an employer to life. But I think if we don't have a life insurance or a meal voucher or, whatever it may be, like, people will still come work for Workday, unfortunately. Or fortunately. But, they will be looking at things of, is the salary right? If your salary is wrong, then
it's much broader than
bad
benefits, right? Like, again, we make these arguments around benefits also to attract, retain, etc. But like, it is much broader.
But I think, I think benefits do, the value to which benefits have been, or the value to which is placed on benefits by employees, I think is starting to increase now. It's not just a salary conversation. And I think, there are certain benefits, obviously, that aren't going to move the dial, but there are some that do, I think. So I guess that kind of leads us neatly onto the cost pressures conversation that we sort of chatted about earlier. So, with everything we've discussed around data and how to use data to make informed decisions, even though we don't think we necessarily can, where are you when it comes to cost pressures then? How should reward leaders tackle that problem? Data's not helping, I guess.
For the least experienced ones, right? We talk to a lot of folks who don't have the level of experience doing this and are really feeling that, right? Being pressured by the CFO. How should they think about
you've got to
it?
cut 10%, where do you even start?
And it's really hard. I think that's always been the challenge through, lots of organizations. I think this is where you kind of need to dial it back and think what is really important and what sets us apart as an employer. There are obviously certain things that you can trim quite easily. You can use some of the data. Are people engaging with it? Are people using it? If there's something that people aren't using, then you might as well get rid of it. If it's served somewhere else, so do you have it within your medical program and you also have it available somewhere else? Well, then can you get rid of one? I've often seen times where you have your own discount portal, but many of your vendors will also offer a discount portal. So you're doubling up. So do you necessarily
happens
need to
so often, actually, yeah.
Exactly, and you see the same with telemedicine and stuff.
Totally.
So
EAPs, telemedicines, discounts. That's where I see it most
so
often.
can you, before you start making some of the big cuts, can you kind of get more bang for your buck from what you already have? Does your EAP provider provide a discounts portal or telemedicine, or does your income protection provider, have other stuff that you're just not leveraging?
Yeah.
Ultimately, if you have to make some of those changes, you need to think, is this going to have unintended consequences, or are we going to drive the right outcomes? The way that I've looked at making cost savings, we've actually instituted on-site counselling because there was a lot of spend within our medical insurance for counselling. And obviously that cost kind of goes up every year. So we made it much more available to employees, much more easy, because it's in the office and people use it and they use it more. And that's a way of actually, conversely, balancing some of our costs better.
I mean, that's a really interesting example, because then they don't go claim on the medical premiums,
insurance,
which means that the medical premiums don't go up, right? So I think those are
the
kinds
commission
of
that goes to your broker doesn't go up as well. On top
Unless
of
they're
that.
not taking as much time out of the office because it's there.
Look, so many.
There you go. Sold.
So there are ways of thinking about some of this stuff differently. That you can move cost, you can save cost, but we've put on-site counsellor and on-site physio. Utilization is great, and it means that it's less in some of the other places.
Right? So basically, adding benefits to remove cost, essentially. Is kind of like, what is it?
That's the story I tell anyway. There's no data to prove it.
It's a good story. Awesome. Look, I mean, John, I think we'll have to have you back in actually around something, because we probably could have kept going for like another 2 hours here on a lot of these topics, and we haven't
very passionate about benefits. So
I mean, and there's a lot to talk about, really. I think so. We'll definitely have to come back in, but maybe we want to sort of move to the final section, Carl.
Yeah. So we've got a tradition that we're trying to create, John, which is a benefit confession. We need another jingle here, everyone. So in your extensive career, John, any benefits confessions you'd like to declare?
Yeah. So when I was at Sky, there was a lot of, and I love the brand. I used to buy the TV and everything, watch it almost every day of my life when I was younger. And you see the presenters on screen, right? And you grow affinity to them. And so I got a call from a HR partner who said, "Oh, Jeff Stelling needs some help with his benefits." And you just never expect to have that conversation. So I was like, yeah, tell him to give me a call. And so I was in a meeting. I missed the call, but he left a voicemail, and it's like, "Hey, John, it's Jeff," in his voice, from Soccer Saturday. So I definitely kept that recording. And he then called me, and it was, in the days where Skype calling and stuff. So it says Jeff Stelling calling. I was like, just panicked and had a real fanboy moment. But it's like, John Whitaker speaking, and it's like, "Hi, John, it's Jeff." You're like, "Jeff who?" Even though I kind of knew who it was. So that for me was just an amazing moment of talking to someone who's kind of a hero, and talking about kind of benefits, which again you just never think you get into that situation. Very quickly as well, and this may seem a little bit of kind of nepotism. So we were introducing a global parental leave benefit at Workday. And we got into a discussion of, do we need to backdate this, because there's going to be people who miss out and stuff. And I was like, well, I have to excuse myself, because if we backdate it, I'm going to benefit from this policy. So, really strange discussion of, I'd really quite like you to, because then I'm going to get 12 weeks of paid parental leave. And so it actually ended up that we did kind of backdate it, and that backdating covered me. And so I was the first person to book onto
you were pretty nice there, John. I would, in that situation, be like, 100% backdated.
But, sometimes you have the power to make those decisions that really help people. But I benefited from it that time. So, I have the power. And one more if I can. So we also have a fertility benefit that we introduced kind of 2 years ago. And at the summer party, I had kind of 3 separate employees come up to me and goes, "Because of you, we were able to have children."
I mean,
and I was like,
"How more rewarding can you get?"
Exactly. That kind of really melts your heart. So I was like, "That's fine. The only stipulation is that you have to call your children John." So, in kind of 5 years' time, you're going to see all these children, boys and girls, starting school called John. So hopefully John becomes a popular name again.
There you go, a hat trick of confessions.
There you go.
And Jeff Stelling being one of them. Yeah. My favourite bit about that is, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, but I bet halfway through that you're thinking, who is Jeff Stelling?
I had no idea who that was.
Amazing.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Thanks, really thank you so much for having
the conversation.
Me. Yeah.
Amazing.
So John's out of the room.
Yeah.
What a nice guy.
Oh, amazing! Like
That was really good.
we could have been going for hours.
I think we're going to have to have him back, aren't we? I think
100%. Like
yeah.
I think I think we barely scratched the surface, right? Like, in terms of what we could have covered. And yeah, a lot of good conversations, right? I really enjoyed the kind of when he was talking himself out of a job there. Right? He was like, benefits, don't know, is it actually that important? What does it do? But then sort of flipping him back around and being like, no, for those times that matters, right? That like really, really matters. So I think that's a refreshing perspective because a lot of times people would just be like, yeah, benefits is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Where like it may or may not be, right? So I think
he's
that
so
was really
right about the
refreshing.
data piece and the ROI though. I mean, like we spend so much time trying to shove a square peg in a round hole, trying to make the numbers fit the narrative, and it is all just nonsense, right? Isn't it? I mean, there's some things you can do around it, and you know, but broadly at a macro level, it's nonsense. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important, refreshing perspective, right? That a lot of people just wouldn't have. Yeah, so that was great. We definitely need to have John back again.
John back, but yeah, on to the next one.
That's right.
So thanks everyone for listening. Please do subscribe. Go on to Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Click that subscribe button. Also, feel free to go and check out our blog on thanksben.com, and we'll see you next time.